to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I am Blake Harrison and joining me as ever is Stuart Whiffin.
Is this going to become a thing now?
It might be a thing, yeah. I enjoy doing it.
Did you do that in front of MVP?
No, I think it was Nina.
Yeah, so weird.
It's
so
really weird,
whenever we have boxers on there, you're going to do that?
Yep, that's not a new thing. Enjoy it, guys. Speaking of boxers, we've got a fantastic guest today. He's one of the hottest young prospects in all of British boxing. He is the current Southern Area heavyweight champion. It's Johnny the Romford Bull Fisher.
That's
How
great.
You doing, mate?
Love that intro. Good to see you, Blake.
Do you have a career as potential kind of ring announcer, do you think?
We'll get you in the next fight. We'll have to talk to David Diamante, see if he's happy with it, but we'll give you a little trial, maybe do a bit of work experience with him.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like
Love it. Well, look, Johnny, we always ask guests to start at the very beginning. So, I mean, we're recording this in Essex and we know you're an Essex boy. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and was it an environment where you felt that you had to be able to look after yourself and if that was the case, was you comfortable with conflict?
Well, I grew up in Romford, born and raised in Romford, went to school at Marshall's Park, and I wouldn't say I come from a rough background, just a normal upbringing, normal background. Yeah, everyone's got troubles at school, you can have fights and stuff, but I stayed away from trouble. One thing boxing taught me from a young age is boxing since I was 5 or 6 is to do the fighting in the ring. You don't need to fight on the outside. Always fight as a last resort. You have to defend yourself, yeah, but listen, where I live, I've got great people around me, good family. Marshall's Park was a great school for me and taught me some good morals and good respect. And, fighting wasn't something that I had to do, but it's something I love to do. So that's why I keep doing it now.
And you mentioned being doing boxing from about 5 or 6 years old. Why? What was it? Something you wanted to do? Was it something your parents or where did that come from?
Just grew up around watching Rocky 1, Rocky 2, watching Cinderella Man. Like my granddad done a bit. My dad boxed a little bit. Nothing professional, but he boxed at Repton. He boxed at West Ham, and I just fell in love with it. I've just seen videos on my old video camera that my mum and dad have got of me shadow boxing at my parties and stuff like that. I stood up in front of all my mates in the school hall and started shadow boxing till I had a tiger. It's a bit embarrassing watching back, but I just remember.
I wish we had that clip.
Yeah, no,
that'd be great if we could do that.
Let's not do that. But no, it was good. Like I just remember, it came up actually on IFL TV once. It came up. Who inspired you to start boxing, or what boxer? And for me, it was Rocky Balboa. Really, like watching the old Rocky films. Like it's just inspiring, isn't it? And but it's the same plot every time. He trains for a fight, doesn't do very well, doesn't train properly. Something happens, then he starts training properly, and he wins. Like it's a basic thing, but it's just the old. You want to be the hero, don't you? And Rocky is like. That's something that inspired me from a young age, from 5, 6 years old.
And people forget how great that first movie was, don't they?
The second one's my favourite.
Two's my favourite as well.
Didn't the first one win an Oscar?
Yeah.
Like it was like
such a small budget as well.
I know. And the story of like Sylvester Stallone constantly being told, "No, we don't want you to play Rocky."
Exactly.
But he kept stuck to his guns.
I saw that. Did you see the documentary on Netflix the other day?
No.
It's really good.
Great,
and it's basically like he had a lot of people around him, agents and movie people, and they're trying to tell him, "No, we've got to do it like this, do it like that." But he said he stuck to how he wanted it, even through the rest of the franchise. Rocky 3, they was against putting Mr. T in it, but he said, "No, this is how I want to do it." It was against him having Hulk Hogan in it, and he said, "No, I want to do it how I do it." So it's a good lesson in sticking to what you want and not trying to listen to what other outside voices tell you to do as well. It's a good story.
Is it on the bucket list, or have you done it already? Have you been to Philly and run the steps?
No, I've got to do that. 100%.
Got to do it, mate.
That'd be great. Would love to do that. But yeah, it's just something. Rocky's just it's a metaphor for everyone in life, isn't it? Not just boxers and sports people, but he's iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the underdog story, isn't it? Yeah. Everyone loves it. Same with Cinderella Man.
Yeah, Cinderella Man's a great film. Russell Crowe, another great actor. Even ones like Southpaw, a bit more modern ones, boxing films, fighting films. Yeah. But not just boxing. I remember watching Warrior with Tom Hardy. That was a great film as well. And Nick Nolte's in that one. But when boxing and fighting sports go to the big screen, everybody can resonate with it, So
Absolutely.
It's good.
Absolutely. It wasn't just boxing at a young age. Rugby, right?
Yeah, well, this is what happened. I boxed from about 5 or 6 years old, and then I started playing rugby when I got to sixth form. I went to sixth form at Cooper's in Upminster. First game of rugby I ever played, I dropped the ball. broke my hand, someone fell on it, and then for 2 or 3 years my hand was like, just wasn't right, but I didn't know it was broken, so I was just playing rugby with it, strapping it up. I went to Exeter University and done a bit more rugby there because I couldn't punch for like 2-3 years. But that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I had a little break from the boxing, started picking it back up when I was 19, but rugby was great. I love playing in a sport, in a team sport, and being around that camaraderie, but I just probably wasn't as invested in it. I didn't love it as much as I love boxing and doing it on my own. And part of that, doing it on your own aspect and being an individual and having to do it all yourself, I think that resonates with me a little bit more. And I did pick it back up when I was 19, but that little break was great for me.
Is there any kind of transferable skills there? Because what we see with MMA a lot is, particularly with the Americans, they'll be in like going towards like the NFL. They'll play like college football or whatever it is, but then they don't quite make the cut in like the NFL, say. And then particularly heavyweights. They would have moved into MMA. Is there any transferable skills from like kind of rugby to boxing, or is it just athleticism?
Definitely. It's not so much the footwork side of it, because in rugby you're quite square on, aren't you? Like in the defensive line.
Don't ask me. I've never played. I'm quite happily have never played a game of rugby in life. I'd be crushed like a twig.
They're tough, them old rugby boys, but I think it's more of a mindset thing. So look, Exeter University feeds directly into Exeter Chiefs, who at the time were Premiership champions on the bounce, twice on the bounce, and it was the setup, the strength and conditioning, the diet, people on you, tracking all your fundamentals, how high you jump, how much you're eating, what your weight's like. And I think that professional environment stood me in good stead when I had to go on my own a little bit and start boxing, and it put me in a good elite mindset for when I was going to spar Joyce, spar Dave Allen. And I was only a 19-year-old kid at this time and was doing it sort of part-time, but it instilled in me a sense of professionalism that I took with me in every aspect of my sport. So I've got a lot to owe to Exeter University Rugby, because it was a cutthroat environment as well. All these kids coming from really posh schools and rugby schools. I come from Marshalls and Cooper's. Cooper's not a bad rugby school, but nothing on the level of these boys like Harrow and Bromsgrove and Eton, top schools. And to be in that environment, what I wasn't used to, was very good for my mindset as well.
Did you feel that, going from a team sport to being in that ring on your own must have been sort of radically different? But is there an element that you've still got your team? Do you know what I mean? You've got your corner, and you've got those around you. Talk through a little bit around, when you're in there, yes, you're on your own, but you've got them voices in your ears, right?
I've got a great team around me. I've got Mark Tibbs and Jimmy Tibbs. Jimmy Tibbs
don't get a lot better than that, does it?
Jimmy Tibbs is a legend of the sport. He, when I won the Young Boxer of the Year, he actually won a Lifetime Achievement Award at the same time, and rightly so. And Mark Tibbs, my trainer, Sonny Cannon, my strength and conditioner. You've got your managers, you've got your dad. My dad, he's a great help as well in behind the scenes. But for me, it is radically different to going to play football or play rugby, because when you do, everyone clears out the ring and it's you versus another bloke, another heavyweight. It is you on your own, and you've had all the preparation work, but it is a lonely sport, the same as MMA, and you've got to make sure you've got that individual mindset, because you train with different people, you've got training partners, stable mates, but we all understand that it's an individual sport.
Do you have any kind of like superstitions or like routines that you have to go through before making that walk to the ring?
I always wear a pair of my Exeter Uni rugby socks. So they're a bit old now, they're from 2017, but I've got the same pair.
Holes in them?
They get a bit crusty and feel a bit like cardboard, but when I'll make sure, I'll tell my mum, have you packed my socks? You've done my socks? Make sure they're in there. And they're like black and green, they're nice. They suit my kit colour as well, but I think I might have to ring them up soon and get a few spare pairs. But I've got to wear EU RFC rugby socks every single time I fight. Really? That's the only one I've got.
You don't think it's necessarily got to be that pair? They just have to be the rugby socks?
It's getting harder and harder. I think it will have to be that pair. Every time it's been that pair. So and
you're talking to one of the in-betweeners about a crusty sock. That's sketchy territory, mate.
At least it's not Jay, because that could be a little bit more feel. It's not Jay.
You had quite a sort of short amateur career, and then when you turned pro in 2021.
Yeah, 2020, and I had my first fight February 2021.
Tell me about the enormity of that, of getting in that ring for the first time.
It was great. I met what it was when I was at university. I met a guy called Sam Jones when I was coming back and sparring Joyce, and that was with SJM Boxing, who still manage me now. And he was the one who sort of gave me a chance. I was at university in the library. I've been sparring Joyce on and off in Surrey, and then they said, "Do you want to spar him again Christmas time?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." Well, January time, and I said, "Where do you want me to go?" And he said, "Oh, we want you to come to Las Vegas with us." And I was in the library studying for the rest of my dissertation, and I couldn't believe it. And I was just on the phone every few weeks because it was being all confirmed. Like, am I still coming? And it was great to do that. And that's where it sort of the professional journey started for me. I had no inhibition. I had no expectation of turning pro after that trip. I just thought that would be great. Yeah. And COVID hit, and then Sam Jones and Adam Morley of SJM said to me, "Do you fancy just turning pro and giving it a go? You might as well. There's no opportunities really out there at the minute. Everyone's locked down." And my first fight I had during lockdown, everyone in white suits. It was very nerve-wracking, very eerie, and I've always had support even as an amateur. I bring 500 people down to Exeter with me, and to fight in front of no one was weirdly more nerve-wracking than if there was a big crowd in there. And then I got more and more used to the crowd. I think my first fight at the O2, I'd done about 1,500, 2,000 tickets, and I fought Ali Pali, done 2,500 tickets. So it was a weird start, 2 or 3 fights behind closed doors in the Matchroom Garden as well. I'd done the fight camp one as well, and it was sort of good in a way because I built up with that big crowd, you know.
Johnny, to have the following you had so early on in your professional career, it's pretty unheard of, isn't it? And
yeah.
Tell me how you... I mean, I'm a club promoter, and I'm struggling to get 500 people in my club of a weekend. How do you get 1,500 to 2,000 people turn up to your shows?
Honestly, it was mind-blowing when I first saw them all at the O2. That's where my legs really started going like jelly, because I thought 1,500, 2,000 people is a lot of people, but when I put it in the O2, it seemed like double the size. The O2's a proper arena, and the noise just circles around, and the whole bottom bowl was just full of my supporters. And it's a lot to do with the fact where I'm from. I've got a big family. This was before Big John, my dad, became such a big social media star as well. And it's just I've got my brother's mates come, my own rugby mates came, my mates from Exeter, they spread the word around their towns, and more people wanted to come, and it was surreal. And I'm very thankful for the support I've got, because putting bums on seats is hard at the minute as well in boxing. In selling tickets at venues, we're in a bit of a cost of living crisis, and people don't have 40 quid and 60 quid to go and do it. So then people that fork it out to do it, and it's not just in London they do it. People travel up to Sheffield, to Liverpool when I fought there, and local people up there support me. So it's sort of stretched nationwide now, which is great. We're actually doing a tour to Australia and New Zealand in February, and because of this BOSH and Big John stuff. So it's great that it's sort of growing all over. It's not just in Romford where I'm from or my university. It's become a nationwide thing, and I'm very grateful. The one thing I do think about is I've not fought in London recently, where it's been a massive card, and I've been able to sell a lot of tickets. The last one I only got 500 tickets at the Joshua fight, and I think a lot of people bought through the general link anyway, and there was a good 2,000-3,000 people in there for me. But I'm looking forward to when I can headline in London for an English title or British title one day, and and pack it out with my own supporters. It'd be great.
You mentioned your dad there. There he is, Big John.
Big John.
You're dedicating your life to be amazing at a certain sport, and some people are more likely to recognise him than you because he says the word BOSH.
Yes.
And how frustrating is that?
Huge amounts of chicken balls and compo prawns as well. So you've got to commend him for that. But when I got my dad in the ring after my full fight, the first one in front of a crowd, and it was just great because he got a massive cheer, and he's done it all from the beginning, and he wasn't expecting none of this to happen, and he was just helping me through the goodness of his art in a way. And I don't like talking about my dad in this way because we will banter each other and I'll take the nick out of him, but he has been a massive help. I remember him sitting down writing out all the tickets out by hand, like he'd have it all written down. He's very old school, like doesn't have a computer, just does it all by hand. People ringing him up every minute of every day doing my tickets, and then he became a personality through the boxing. And then a good guy called Freddie Goodall was a good friend of mine and our family, got him on these club nights. He started doing some club nights, throwing prawn crackers out to people. People seem to just resonate with him. Now he's doing DJ sets, and he's doing mixes all over. Now he's going to Australia and New Zealand as well, so I think they just resonate with him. Like, he's just a normal bloke from Romford. He's worked hard all his life, working from 4 a.m. till 6 p.m, delivering cheese and meat, and that's what we was doing in lockdown.
Is that what he did? He was a delivery man for a living.
Cheese man. He had a little cheese warehouse and was selling cheese, and then in lockdown, no restaurants to sell cheese to, no suppliers were open, and he wasn't getting any direct help from the government. And we was like, what are we going to do? And we started selling meat off the back of a van, working all the hours God could send. And then we'd have one day we had off was a Sunday, and that Sunday was the best feeling ever. Just to be able to sit down and do nothing. It was stressful. I was working for 50 quid a day, just trying to turn a bit of money around with my dad. I didn't really want to take any money, but he'd give me some. I was just trying to keep the business going. And they were really hard times, but they were good times because it grounded me a little bit. And it was just stressful. Everything was we had our house. We got a big mortgage to pay, and it was good. Things like that ground you, I think, and it teaches you. It teaches you good morals and good values. And I saw my dad struggling, so now he's throwing chicken balls and prawn crackers out. He's got to keep it going as long as he can.
So Stu's like, he had his 50th birthday recently, right?
Yeah, we went out to Budapest.
Yeah,
it was great.
I mean, I did go. I didn't know if he was going to be here today or not, and I went through like the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. He seems so popular with people that are about 18 years old.
Love him. They love him. I don't know. We go into I'll go there to the club with him sometimes, and people can say, "Oh, it's Johnny, blah blah blah, Romford ball, lovely." But him, it's just another level. He went to Butlins last week and done a DJ set and was flying darts at Minehead. Like, everyone's going mental for him. It's like he's a pop star. But all he's done is just been a normal bloke, and people seem to click with him. And I think the relatability. We live in an age now with TikTok and things like that. He doesn't even know he was on TikTok, by the way. My brother just put him on there to start with, and people are coming up to him.
So funny.
And it's just, I think people, the age we live in now, if you resonate with someone, it's very easy to connect with them. And Big John.
Well, I met you for the first time at the event to launch
the
Conor McGregor star, and I think you were sitting there with your dad and some your friends and family. I think Sonny Edwards was there, wasn't he?
Eddie Hearn was there briefly.
Nina was there.
Nina.
And I remember when this entourage come through and Conor was being sort of brought through like he was the president, everyone getting out of the way. He stopped, didn't he? He went, "Oh, Big John," didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He went, "Oh, this is a good story, actually." He walked straight past me, walking past. Not like I expect anything anyway, but goes straight to my dad, gives him a big high five, "Big John, Bosh." And then my dad puts the camera back to me, and I'm just shaking my head like, what have I done wrong? I'm getting punched in the face every day. He's eating chicken balls. I've chosen the wrong career.
Striving, sacrificing.
The next best thing after that is the next day, Conor McGregor put a picture of me up, and he hasn't tagged me. He's accidentally tagged Big John instead. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. Big John's getting everywhere.
I want to ask you, just while we're talking family as well, on a way more sort of sincere angle here, when you won the Southern Area title, you dedicated that to your granddad, didn't you?
It was brilliant.
Was that a real moment for you?
Definitely. Like, my dad and granddad were best mates, working together for 30, 40 years, and my granddad took me everywhere, whether that was football training, like this is from my formative years as a teenager, football training, rugby, cricket, boxing. Every night he'd be round, and he was just a proper family man. And he said it how it was. If I was doing something wrong, he'd used to give me a bit of a bollocking after football if I weren't trying hard enough and stuff like that. So he was a good man, a fair man. And I dedicated to him. The next day I took it to my granddad's grave. My nan was there. It was brilliant. But I think family is the most important thing with whatever you do. My mum works for me. My dad does part-time stuff for me. Henry, my brother, is doing my social media stuff now. I want to eventually get my sister involved. And I think in a sport like boxing or any combat sport, you've got to have people that you trust around you, and there's no one better that you can trust than your family.
And keep you grounded.
Keep you grounded. Like my dad, listen, he's my biggest supporter. But if I'm doing something wrong, or my mum as well, like even if I'm out and I'm 6-7 weeks out from a fight and I'm out for dinner and I've stayed out a bit too long, I'll get a little text saying, "Where are you? What are you doing?" Like, it's not in a controlling way, but I know what the bigger picture is, and it can be really annoying. Like, you think, why is he pestering me? I'm a 24-year-old man. I can do what I want. But when you get home and you realise my dad was probably right. Like, he will say something that's a bit annoying me, like he's on the case, but he's right. And that's why it probably annoys me, because deep down I know he's saying the correct things. And it's good to have a family that cheer you on, support you. They'll do everything for me, but keep it real at the same time, because there's nothing worse than if you're a sportsman coming up and you've got people just saying yes to you all the time, yes men around you, just telling you what you want to hear. Yeah. So, it's good to have people that keep it real at the same time.
Absolutely. And look, we are an MMA podcast predominantly. You mentioned to us before we started recording, actually, you have been to a UFC event. Tell us how lucky you were. What event did you go to see?
So I was out there training in the UFC gym, actually, with Joyce. He was training for a fight. I think it was with Daniel Dubois at that point. And Yeah, we got tickets to go and watch a highly touted card. I obviously know a little bit about MMA. Israel Adesanya versus Romero. 2 great names. And apparently it's probably one of the worst UFC fights you could possibly go and watch in history.
It wasn't great. I think in terms of title fights, Rose versus Esparza's probably worse.
Ain't far behind it.
Yeah, but it ain't far behind. And then there was, funnily enough, Ngannou versus Derek Lewis was a really
Another
bad one when it should have been great. But that is up there as one of the worst. Adesanya Romero,
like, no one was engaging, and like it's the same with boxing. Listen, boxing can be really, really boring sometimes, like terribly boring. Other times it can be fantastic, and I think that's why we love it, because you don't know what you're going to get, and when it does set alight, it's great. But yeah, that won't be one that will be sticking in the memory too long for any good reason.
No. Are there any MMA fighters that you watch or fights that you've really enjoyed?
I've never really watched too much, but I see Tom Aspinall coming up sometimes. I know he was an ex-boxer, and it's good to see him. He just won the interim belt, didn't he?
Yeah.
I know
in very good fashion.
Francis Ngannou. I was trained in the Vegas gym. I saw him out there a few times. Very friendly guy, very big guy. I saw him spar Joyce. I'm not a massive MMA enthusiast, but I've got massive respect for these guys and what they do. And that UFC gym in Las Vegas, it's like a spaceship when you walk in there.
Really?
It's got everything you ever want. Conor McGregor, obviously, you know about him. But yeah, when it comes to MMA, I'm not the sharpest tool in the box.
Well, just going back to boxing then for a moment, and you've mentioned, I know you're good friends with Joe Joyce, aren't you? You've spent years sparring and stuff. So the heavyweight scene at the moment is stacked with great potential fights in that top 10. How quickly do you see yourself getting in the mix with some of them big fights?
Well, listen, I know there's a process that you have to go through, and it's all to do with rankings, and there's politics in boxing, much more so than in UFC, because UFC's got the beauty of the fact that it's just sort of one organisation.
Yeah.
The fights get made. With boxing, you've got the WBO, IBF, WBC, you've got mandatories you've got to face. So it's a very difficult thing to navigate. But listen, if one day I could fight for a world title with the support I've got, that would be amazing. But there is a process myself that I've got to be focused on. It's not about chasing these big ones and going through leaps and skipping levels out. I think the way I want to do it is do it the traditional way, Southern area, English, British. There are things that can change. There might be a youth title out there in the WBC youth title, or an international belt that you can win, but getting through Southern area, English, British is tough on its own. And I think that tough process is what will stand you in good stead. Once you get there, you're battle hardened, ready to go for the European and the Commonwealth and the world honours. So there's a process that's got to be had over the next 2-3 years. And I'm only 24 years old. Yeah. As a heavyweight, especially when you get to 30, I think you've matured. So there is no rush on my part.
Yeah. Taking it back slightly to MMA and a man you just mentioned in Francis Ngannou. Yeah. What did you make of the Ngannou-Fury fight? There's a lot of people in the world of MMA that thought Ngannou won that fight.
I was actually in the TalkSport studios commentating and like a watch-along with that fight, and I've got to hand it to Francis Ngannou. I didn't give him a chance because I've seen the power firsthand, but you'd expect, like most people, that if Tyson Fury went into the cage, it'd be much different. It's just different disciplines, but the man came there the whole way through the press conference and the build up. He was calm, collected, and Fury wasn't himself that night, and he's capitalised. I'd just like to have seen Ngannou give it a bit more of a go towards the end, because he could have really stole the show and put the judges in a really awkward position there if he just let his hands go a little bit more. But much easier said than done against someone like Fury. But the same on Fury's side. I thought, why are you not pressuring him? Yeah. Maybe it was the awkwardness and the fact that the shots would have been coming from weirder angles, him being an MMA fighter, and obviously the power that he felt when he knocked him down. I was so shocked when he knocked him down, but
it's crazy.
He's put himself right in the mix of the top 10s now. I think he's got to rank him in the WBC. So,
which is crazy, right?
Yeah, but listen, he's a world champion in his own discipline, and he's crossed over. And as he's always said, Ngannou, he's always wanted to be in the boxing world, and that's what his initial goal was. So credit to him.
Well, it looks like what might happen next is a potential mixed rules fight with Deontay Wilder in the PFL. Which, I mean, when they say mixed rules, I'm assuming maybe they mean like no takedowns, just strike him with the 4-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think you'd give a go, something like that? Or do you like, no, I'm just purely boxing and that's me?
Boxing's hard enough, but listen, if that opportunity ever arose, you've got to seriously look at it, and they're going to make a huge amount of money off it. Yep. People are interested in these sort of things now, and you've seen with the completely on a tangent, like the YouTuber guys and the crossover guys there's an appetite to see these big spectacular events. And listen, I'd tune in to watch Wilder versus Ngannou in a cage. I think millions of people would. It's very, very exciting.
We're seeing these YouTubers fighting fighters like Tommy Fury. He's obviously, there's silly money floating about over there.
Yeah, there is.
Does that appeal to you?
Not so much. I remember I was at the Fury KSI build-up for the Zone, and I understand it. I understand they're selling a show, but some of these guys, listen, not so much the Furies, the KSIs, the Jake Pauls, who've dedicated for a good few years now, but the guys who sort of just turn up, think they can train for 6 weeks, not really spar, and think that they call themselves professional boxers.
Yeah.
We've got to separate the entertainment crossover side of it. That's entertainment.
Yeah.
That's not boxing. Professional boxing is different.
Yeah.
And Tommy Fury, although, probably been around the gyms, he's still a novice, and he'd say that himself. I know Tommy Fury, he's got a long way to go. And it isn't really him who's saying that he's a great fighter, he's championship level. It's just he's in this environment and he's capitalising, and I commend him for it. But the guys like when I see KSI walking out with a big belt, and I think it makes me cringe a little bit. But listen, they know what they're doing. They're showmen, they're operators, and we can learn a little bit from that as boxers, developing our own personalities, not being fake, not being false, but they're very good at marketing themselves, and we can take a bit from that.
You say that event that we was at.
Yeah.
There was a female YouTuber boxer, AJ Bunker, who walked in with this big pink belt over her shoulder, and straight away everyone was asking her for pictures and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm sitting next to the bantamweight champion of the world who didn't have her belt with her, and I'm like, Neem, you need to get your belt over your shoulder. Yeah. People don't know who you are.
A proper belt that she's won in professional boxing as well. So, but this is the nature of the world we live in now. People like the extravaganza of it, the spectacular nature of things, and sometimes a little bit less substance than there should be there. But I think you can never stray from what you are, and I will always be a person that values the merit of something over the extravaganza of it. And I know that we've all got to play the game a little bit, but I'm always going to be honest with my career and always be down to earth and try and keep myself as humble as possible, because in the grand scheme of things, all I've won so far is a Southern Area title. It's a great belt to win. It's an old-fashioned, old-school belt. Some great fights have been had for the Southern Area, but I know there's a process that I've got to go through to get to the heights of the people like Ngannou's got to, Fury, Usyk, all these sort of guys. So, yeah, I'm always going to be humble, and I think people respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've mentioned some names there. I'm going to ask you to play a quick bit of word association. So I'm going to throw some fighters at you and a quick bullet point on each one. Daniel Dubois.
Power.
Joe Joyce.
Strength.
Usyk.
Magician.
Tyson Fury.
King.
John Fury.
Father.
Derek Chisora.
War Chisora.
AJ.
Not respected like he should be.
Joseph Parker.
Warrior.
Ruiz.
Fast hands.
Zhang.
Problem.
Deontay Wilder.
Good night.
I'm going to add to that. Eddie Hearn.
The boss.
Frank Warren.
Bricktop.
Bricktop is great.
I love Frank Warren. I know he's not my promoter, but I was at a thing the other day with Frotch and Groves, and they was doing a little chat about on their 10-year anniversary of their fight, and Carl Frotch said, you've got to hand it to Frank Warren. He's been shot, he's been punched by Mike Tyson, he's been hung out a window. Like, the man's been about, and he's been through it and seen it all, and he's still doing it to this day. Same as Bob Arum, people like that.
Yeah.
I've got massive respect for these guys that have been there, done it, and they're still there. And although I'm an Eddie man through and through, matchroom through and through, I've got a lot of time and respect for Frank Warren, because he's been there, done it. And
Absolutely.
He might have done a few things in the past, but he's worn it, and he's still here.
Absolutely.
Let's give you another couple of quick fire things here. Just like, we want to know, who do you think is the greatest boxer to ever do it?
I think when you talk about a question like this, it's about how you transcend the sport as well. And Muhammad Ali, I think what he done in terms of transcending the sport, and still spoke about this day, being sportsman of the century. And for me, from a boxing perspective, he beat the era before him in Sonny Liston. he beat the guys in his era, and then he beat George Foreman, who was this big wrecking machine in Zaire. And if you watch the George Foreman film, I don't know if you've seen it, that's a great film, it's worth the watch. But I think someone who's not only transcended sports in the political world, and what he done with standing up for what he believed in, whether we agree with it or not. In Vietnam, he stood to his guns, stuck to his guns, and he backed it up with his boxing ability as well, and beat people from the era before his era and then the era after him. And tragic how his life sort of ended and had to go through all that pain. But yeah, he's the one that sticks to my mind. The greatest to ever do it was Muhammad Ali.
Yep, great answer. What do you think is the greatest boxing fight of all time?
Well, there's one that springs to mind, and it's not as well known, but Ron Lyle versus George Foreman. If you watch that fight on YouTube, I urge anyone to watch it, but it's an absolute slugfest. And we all know how hard George Foreman punches, but you've got to give credit to Ron Lyle. That fight is an absolute war from beginning to end, and how it's not spoke about more is just amazing, because it's just literally, it's like watching two lightweights go at each other, but it's two big 17, 18 stone absolute beasts of men just leathering each other. And then it obviously went on a lot longer, and the ref let a lot more go. And I would urge anyone to watch Ron Lyle versus George Foreman.
Current best heavyweight in the world?
Even though the performance wasn't what he would have liked it to be, it's still Tyson Fury, in my opinion, because of the history of he's beat Vladimir Klitschko in 2015. People seem to forget he'd done that. The guy who's reigned for 10 years unbeaten, he went and turned him over in his backyard. Then, in my opinion, beat Wilder 3 times, and then he's still there. And he will. The thing with Fury, sometimes when he's expected to win, he doesn't perform as well. I think back to Steve Cunningham when he got dropped by Steve Cunningham a few years back. When the fights he's expected to win, he doesn't really do it. But when the heat is on, I'm hoping when he fights Usyk, he'll turn it on one last time, and then he'll be cemented by everyone, I think, as the best heavyweight of this era.
What are your thoughts on the... I forgot his name. He's from Grays. Who's the other Essex heavyweight that I thought beat Tyson Fury?
John McDermott.
John McDermott, Big John. I thought he won that first fight.
Yeah, it's at the Brentwood Centre, I think. And then, listen... A lot of people think that. I've got to watch it back myself. But I actually know John McDermott. His dad used to help train us at Brentwood Boys when we was young, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I think they had a rematch, didn't they?
Tyson went to work on him.
And Tyson went to work. But listen, coming up, boxing is a tough business, and sometimes you don't get the rub of the green. That's a lot of people have got a lot of complaints about boxing in that sense, and I can see why. Sometimes I get a bit disillusioned with boxing and see some decisions, and I'm like, you train as hard as you can, and if you're not the A side, sometimes you don't get the rub of the green, and I think that's wrong. And there needs to be a little bit more transparency. We need to hold the refs to account. One sport that I think does very well with in terms of holding decisions to account and getting it right is rugby. The TMO system, and it's sort of all sorted out on as we go, and it's very hard not to. It's hard to get it wrong, but every sport is different. Football's very subjective. We've seen with VAR, it's not really worked. So video analysis isn't always going to work. It'd be interesting with boxing how you would do that, because you then start eating up into. Imagine if you had a review system in boxing or MMA, and you can review a decision or review a low blow. Everyone's getting a breather at the time, and it can be used tactically. So I don't think it's going to be easy to do it. And once a fight's done, it's very hard to overturn decisions. So think about Usyk Dubois.
That's people, of course.
People were thinking about that. My first reaction when I saw that was a picture of a body shot. But you look back at the rules, and then there's a rule about the navel not being able to hit below the belly button. But to me, if you ask me, it's just my general reaction was what a great shot that was. And you then ask yourself if it was the other way round, and Usyk done that to Dubois with the politics involved. I don't want to get too deep into it, but would it have been the same reaction? But that's a discussion for another day. You could do a whole other podcast on that.
Absolutely.
This is arguably the most important question we've got.
Okay.
In your expert opinion, what is the greatest dish to order from a Chinese?
This is the one I've been waiting for. Right, my recommendation is you can only get it in one place as well, and it's the Blue Orchid in Romford, the famous Blue Orchid, the best restaurant in the world in my opinion. If you're going in there, you've got to order the set B2. So you get, with that, this is the whole menu you get, right? So you get...
love this advert.
So you get...
People that are listening, there's no notes here. This is straight off the top of your head.
And I don't get no monetary gain for the Blue Orchid. My dad doesn't. We just love that restaurant. My dad's been going there since he was 16, 17 years old. And they're probably the people that have made him fat, if I'm being honest. But you go in there and you order the B2, so you get a set menu. You go in, your first dishes come up, your starters, your mixed hors d'oeuvres. You get your sesame prawn toast, your spicy spicy pork, crispy seaweed, chicken satay with peanut sauce all over it. Absolutely delicious to start. You move on, you get your crispy aromatic duck and pancakes and hoisin sauce. And if that wasn't enough, that's just your 2 starters, right? You've had that, beautiful. Then you move on to your main dishes. You get your special fried rice, your egg fried rice, your chicken chow mein, your kumpo prawns, your salt and chilli chicken, your beef Cantonese style, which comes up on a sizzling dish. It's absolutely delicious. We order a bit more crispy pork with that. Kumpo prawns, unbelievable, whatever you want. And then after all that, if you've made your way through that, you've got to be tactical with this, because you can't, if you go really hard on the first 2, you've got nothing left for the main dish.
Tactics, very important, it sounds, yeah.
Big John doesn't have to worry about that because he just keeps going. And then to finish, they do these homemade apple or banana fritters with the toffee sauce and caramel sauce all over the top, and then coffees and after eights to finish. It is the best meal, Chinese meal you have anywhere, and it's in Romford, North Street. And
love it.
I don't get any monetary gain for that. Ruthless Richard and Dangerous Daniel will support you, and Stingray, his name is Ray. Ray's the same guy who's been running it for 50 odd years, and we call him Stingray because if you get on the wrong side of him, he'll give you a nasty sting. But it is the best restaurant. You have the best time in there. People have been coming from all over the country to go there.
Incredible.
Was that off the back of you and Big John promoting?
Yeah, I can't believe it. Like, someone was come from Glasgow the other day. We was in there on Saturday night. People come from Bristol, just randomly in there. Just, it's unbelievable. But trust me, you go in the Blue Orchid, you have to try it. You will not be disappointed.
I smell a future episode where
we've
got to go to the Blue Orchid with you and Big John.
Yeah,
love it.
You can do it up there. Definitely
great.
Well, you can come on the Chinese sit down that we do, and maybe we can do a joint thing.
Sounds great.
Can't turn down a nice Chinese.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, look, before we wrap things up, what's coming next?
I can't really announce what it is next, but it's a big one. I spoke
No one's
to
listening.
Eddie.
You can announce. It's fine.
Okay.
You won't get in any trouble. Ignore these 3 cameras. Just announce it right now.
So
we're not just trying to get exclusives off you or anything.
I'll tell you this. I met with Eddie last week. It's a cheeky little away day. Something that we've been after for a little while. It should be being announced this week, so it might be able to be released. But it's a big one, and I'm excited for it. I'm in training. Been sparring Daniel Dubois last week, getting my sparring in, and I'm looking forward to getting out again because it's been a little while since my last one. Just the way dates have fell with the fight happening in Saudi Arabia with Joshua, who was trying to get on the back of his card if it was in London. But very, very excited for what's coming next.
Wonderful. And if people want to keep up to speed with you, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, on my Instagram, Johnny Fisher 1. I'm not on Twitter too much, but I'm on Twitter every now and then when I'm announcing my fights and stuff. But yeah, Johnny Fisher 1. If you want to keep up to date with all the developments of the Romford Army Instagram as well, all your merchandise and stuff on there. BOSH.
We got one in. That's the first
it's quite good. We had to wait to the end for it.
But one to the end. It was perfect. But underrated BOSH.
Underrated. Sly
subtle
BOSH.
Sly BOSH. Right, well, there you go.
Absolutely wonderful. Johnny, thank you so much for coming in, mate.
Thank you for asking me. It's been an honour to be sitting here with Neil off the in-betweens. Very sophisticated Neil, I would say.
Yeah, so I try to mature over the years.
Not talking about Lego and stuff like that.
I can talk to you about Lego. It probably won't go the places you're expecting it to go,
hopefully.
but I can talk to you about Lego.
Wonderful. Well, look, make sure you subscribe in the link below. Weekly episodes coming thick and fast now. Why not check out the archive as well, because we've had a real who's who of combat sports competitors. Go get stuck in. Links below. We'll be back next time.
Bye.
Thank you.